All right, this is the second course, the second lesson on history and civilization course. Will deal with the beginnings of Parliament. This is the section dealing with the beginnings of Parliament. Edward the First brought together the first Parliament. Simon de Montfort's council had been called a parliament, but it included only nobles. It had been able to make statutes or written laws, and it had been able to make political decisions. Several kings had made arrangements for taxation before, but Edward I was the first to create a representative institution which could provide the money he needed. This institution became the House of Commons. Unlike the House of Commons of Lords, it contained a mixture of gentry, knights, and other wealthy freemen from the shires and merchants from the towns. These were the two broad classes of people who produced and controlled England's wealth. We move to the next section, which is called Common Government and Society. We have England was unlike the rest of Europe because it used common law. Centuries later, England's common law system was used in the United States of America, of course, the North American colonies, and in many other British colonial positions, and accepted when these became nations in their own right. Now we move to the heading which is called Ordinary People in Country and Town. The poor were divided from their masters by the feudal class system. The basis of this manorial system was the exchange of land for labor. The landlords accepted the villagers or expected villagers to work fixed hours or fixed number of days on their own land, the home farm. The rest of the time they worked on their small strips of land, part of the village's common land, on which they grew food for themselves and their family. The Domesday Book tells us that over three-quarters of the country people were serfs. Now, in times of shortage of food, when food was shortage of food led to a sharp rise in prices. At the end of the 12th century, the price of wheat, for example, doubled between 1190 and 1200. Sheep that cost 4 pence in 1199 fetched 10 pence in 1210. Prices would be high in a bad season, but could suddenly drop when the harvest was especially good. This inflation weakened the feudal ties, which depended to a large extent on a steady economic situation, which would be worthwhile and workable. The final section today of this lesson, we have the growth of towns as centers of wealth. Many towns stood on land belonging to feudal lords, but by the 12th century, kings were discouraging local lords from taking the wealth from nearby towns. They realized that towns could become effective centers of royal authority to balance the power of the local nobility. The kings therefore gave charters of freedom to many towns, freeing the inhabitants from feudal duties to the local lord. These charters, however, had to be paid for, and kings sold them for a high price, but it was worth the money. Towns could now raise their own local taxes on goods coming in. They could also have their own courts controlled by the town merchants on condition that they paid an annual tax to the king. Inside the town walls, people were able to develop social and economic organizations free from feudal rule. It was the beginnings of a middle class and a capitalist economy. Thank you very much. Please